Heather Mcdonald has got the juiciest scoop. When you're on the road, when you're on the go, Juicy Scoop is the show to know. She talks Hollywood tales, her real life Mr. Segment serial data and serial sister. You'll be addicted and addicted fast to the #1 tabloid real life podcast. Listen in, listen up. Whoop whoop. Heather Mcdonald, Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I have a great show. I have a great interview. Let's get into it. All right. I watched the Pamela Anderson Netflix doc. You can watch it. It just premiered last night. I believe they also had the actual premiere with the stars, which is really Pamela Lee and her sons, Brandon and Dylan. And as a boy mom, I absolutely loved it. I think the thing that you really get from the whole 2-hour documentary about her life is what a dedicated mother she is, what a wonderful adult relationship she has with her kids today. The one son, Brandon, who's the older son, yes, it's Brandon and Dylan. Yes, I believe she was a 90210 fan, though she never said that. That Brandon, he is the producer of this. And he even said, I'm upset that my mom didn't make money off of the sex tape. And they do address the whole sex tape thing, in which she reiterates again, which I always thought this was a big misunderstanding, that of course it was stolen against their will, but they also never then made a deal where they could profit from it. As you know, the Kim Kardashian story is the tape got out, it got in the hands of the Vivid producer, and then they were like, well, if it's going to get out there, we might as well make money on it. Same with Paris Hilton. So she's like, that came after me. I didn't make a dime off of it, and I wouldn't have, even if they had presented me with $100 million, I would have never signed that. She was always very distraught that their like intimate moments, which then they edited together for the movie, was put out there for the first DVD consumption and then internet consumption. So that was really great. And this was filmed during the time of the scripted Hulu show about Pamela and Tommy, which I saw. And at one point, Brandon calls her and he's like, Mom, I saw it. And oh my God, it's such bullshit. I mean, they're trying to make it like the guy who stole your tape did it out of spite because Dad was being a dick and not paying him. And she's like, oh, I can't even take it. It's giving me so much anxiety. So what's really beautiful besides the relationship she has with her son, but also what's sad is that she and Tommy just had such an incredible love affair, and it was so immediate and it was so toxic, and he was jealous, and he would come on the set of Baywatch and be like she'd be nervous if that day she had to kiss a guest star, and the whole crew would be like, oh, fuck, Tommy's here. So as much as he loved her, there was a lot of possession, being possessive of her. And then this is really what broke them up for people, Juicy Scoop history, because I remember hearing this call, but they got in a wicked fight. He was being belligerent, and she called 911, and the phone was there, which we all heard the 911 call, and she's holding the new baby Dylan, and the other boy, Brandon, is a toddler, and he pushed her or kicked her, and she had a wound on her hand and a mark on her back, and he did end up doing like 5 to 6 months in prison and was apologetic and everything, but during that time she was like, nope, not gonna have my kids around this, which it's, that's what everybody's told to do, that's what you should do. But I mean, this is like a touchy subject, but it's like, wow, then throughout the rest of her life, she's chasing that same kind of love. And she says, the only person I really loved was Tommy. He's the father of my kids. And I just was always trying to form that family again. And what was really kind of beautiful, it was just so honest. And I think it probably struck a chord with a lot of people that maybe choose to leave their spouse, which all the signs are like, leave them. But then that really is their true love. And she admitted it. And then, of course, I was thinking, Tommy has now been married to Brittany Furlan, who has been on my show, and I really like her. And with all this Tommy Lee and Pamela Lee resurgence in the zeitgeist, people are like, oh my God, they should get back together. I'm like, he is married. He's been with his wife for many years, and they've been married for like 4 or 5 years. And she's a personality, and I think that must be really hard for her. I'm guessing she didn't watch the Hulu scripted show, and I don't think she watched this Netflix doc. So they just have her. She has all these journals, which I think would add to the book. I've not read the book. I don't know if the book is juicier than this or if it's, a more spread out version of this. But she kept like all these journals about her dating and her life. So I'm guessing it'll be pretty juicy. And she decides to do all the interviews with just like no makeup on, and she's still stunning, and with her freckles and her, I always thought Pamela really was so gorgeous because of her smile. She has this beautiful smile with these big white teeth. And also back then you couldn't buy that smile. You couldn't buy your full lips, and you couldn't buy your perfect teeth like this. And so it was really like you just have never seen such a stunning person. She just has a perfect face. She has a perfect natural nose. She does talk about how she got a boob job after her first Playboy thing, but she had good boobs even before. And just gorgeous body. And anyway, so she was really dedicated to her sons, which I thought was amazing. So she gets into the weddings that she married after she divorced Tommy Lee. She married Kid Rock for a year. Then she married Rick Solomon, who was like a poker player friend of hers. Then they get divorced. Weirdly, Rick Solomon was Paris, his boyfriend, and who she was in her sex tape with. Isn't that crazy? So then they break up. Then they get back together, and she marries him again, then breaks up with him again. Then she gets with John Peters, who was her neighbor in Malibu, but they're only married for 12 days. He since it's come out that he's leaving her $10 million from his will. And then she marries this guy that she meets when she's living out in her hometown of Canada with her parents, who I believe was married to somebody else at the time. They fall in love. She marries him, but now they're broken up. So currently she at this time is single and is like, I just think I want to be single forever. However, Tommy still is the love of my life. And it's called Pamela, a Love Story, because they go through her loves, but it keeps coming back to Tommy. And then I also thought, like, she's showing all these home videos and stuff. I wonder if Tommy had any objection to it. It's good that he didn't, because he comes off, really pretty nice in the whole thing. And the kids, obviously, this was their project too. So it's really good, and it's really interesting. And I've always been a fan of hers and fascinated by her looks and what, her career has been. And Brandon being her son, he brings up the fact that my mom, so many people have made money off my mom. She never made money off the sex tape. She makes that very clear. I think it was always very confusing to us because we know that Kim Kardashian made money off of hers, and so did Paris and the Rick Salmon. But she, because it was so long ago and everything, even if there was the opportunity to make money off of it, I wouldn't have. And Brandon's like, I wish she had. She really was in debt her whole life. I remember right when I started on Chelsea Lately, she did a series on E that was so boring. Honestly, it was just about her dealing with PETA and being a vegan. And it was her raising her boys at the time who were like 10 and 12. And she's like, you'll never see them. You'll only see their feet running around. And it was pretty boring. But I think she needed to take the job, just like Denise Richards did at the time. She had a reality show on E because they're like, what else do we do at this time? I need to make some money. So he's like, yeah, she really never had a lot of money in her life. And now, Amazon has bought the rights to Baywatch, and she's not going to get any money from this either. So but it is really good. And it's a lot of old footage from that time and going through her life, and kind of really, I think a lot of women and, can relate to her as a single mom and trying to find that love again, and kind of recognizing that she has a love issue. Like, she wants to keep falling in love. However, it just always keeps coming back to Tommy, which it was great. It was really well done. And her sons came off great, and they have like a great relationship, the three of them, which was fun to watch. And her parents too. Her parents, who had a very volatile relationship, married young. The husband cheated on the mom. There was physical abuse. Are now like blissfully happy in their old age and madly in love, and live on her property. And they'll like kind of live together. And I thought that was really interesting. So it was great. Okay, let's talk about this latest thing with Real Housewives of Potomac. This is very interesting to the housewife industry as a whole. So now, Robin Dixon was married to Juan Dixon. They have 2 kids. When the show started 5 years ago, they were divorced, but they were like dating again. And then they got engaged, and it was like, when are you going to get married? Why are we all not going? Are you going to get married? It came out on the show that Karen said, I know that the reason that you haven't gotten remarried to your husband, Juan Dixon, ex-husband Juan Dixon, is because he has a girlfriend who's blonde. She looks like me, and people have seen them walking hand in hand in Maryland or whatever, in Georgetown. And she's like, she calls Juan and is like, yeah, Karen's saying that there's a girlfriend, and he's screaming on the phone like, this is bullshit. I'm so sick of like these people talking about me, really angry. And we're like, oh, okay. So anyway, I guess receipts came from the woman just now since this episode aired. And Robin, who has a podcast with Giselle, which is a pretty successful podcast for housewives to have, called Reasonably Shady, they address it on the show. And Robin says, okay, I'll tell you the story. It was a pandemic. Juan was bored. He started talking to a girl on DM, which he shouldn't have been doing, but nothing happened. There was no relationship. They didn't sleep together or anything like that. There is a receipt for a hotel room, which can be easily explained, but I'm not going to tell it here. We're going to save that for the Patreon. And so people hear that and they're like, wait, what? How is Bravo okay with this? They're paying you, like, I don't even know how much she makes, but hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars to expose your life on the show. You didn't tell it on the show. You didn't show it on the show, and you didn't show it at the reunion. The other thing she said is, this person had DM'd all of you about the receipts she had on Juan. So I figured it's going to come up this season, and I'm going to have to address it. Juan and I did address it, and we got through it. But and that's one of the reasons why we didn't get married last year when we were supposed to. She also now is married to Juan, and they did it not on camera, which of course the Bravo producers would have wanted to have that on camera and had tears and speeches and everything. She chose not to because her marriage is her own thing. Everyone has a right to and now she's being honest. But the problem is that she's being honest through her Patreon, which I don't begrudge them. These ladies want to make their money, but it's kind of like kind of crossing the line about being a reality star or not. So I don't know how they're going to feel about it. I think they're definitely going to want Robin and Giselle back, and they're going to want Robin to let's have the aftermath of it. Let's really hear about this infidelity. They're not going to fire her, but it's kind of like a gray area, as each housewife has their own podcast and they can have their own subscription-based thing where they can save their juice for it, but you're supposed to have it all on the show. So I don't know. I think there's probably a war room at Bravo going on right now, being like, do we need to put certain things in the contracts about what they can share and not share on their own life outside of the show versus their own social media or paid platform? Anyway, of course, people paid the $5 and listened. So the story that I have heard from it is, Robin says, so he's bored. He starts talking to this woman who lives in Canada who, they're just talking on DMs because that's what married men or guys that are engaged do during the pandemic, because who didn't, right? It's so boring. What else are you going to do with your days? And it's not like they could have a long distance relationship anyway. Who has a long distance relationship when someone's in Canada and someone's in DC? That never happens. Meanwhile, Giselle had a supposed long distance relationship with her ex-husband, the pastor, who has like 8 children from 12 different women or something. Anyway, so then she says, so the woman comes to Canada and they're just friends, okay? They're just DMing because it's the pandemic and they're bored. She finds herself in Canada and she doesn't have a credit card or it got stolen or something. So she's like, she's from Canada. She's in DC. So she's like, well, let me DM the one person I know in DC who I've been talking to because we're bored and see if he can't come here in person and pay for my hotel room, just run his card, and then, of course, leave. Like, nothing happened. But he did. That's why she has the receipt for Juan Dixon paying for her hotel room. The only story that is more ridiculous and more of a gullible person to believe is when Ashley Darby's husband, the old Australian who, we don't know if he's a sex addict, bi, whatever, met a stripper and there was photos of him standing in the room or something with her, and they were in the hotel room together and she took a photo of him. And he said, I met this woman and then I was just so tired that I said, let's go up to the hotel room. Nothing happened. But did I go in the hotel room with this woman and maybe take a nap in my underwear? Yeah. That's what people do when they're tired, okay? And you're having a drink at a bar in your neighborhood. You don't go home. You get a hotel room and you have a nice woman make sure that you get in the room. And then you say goodbye. Leave. So listen, this is a cast of, they have their own rules about relationships and everything. But now I'm like, just have it all come out. You guys you don't really follow monogamy rules or whatever. Okay. Like, let's hear it. If this is your reality, let's hear it. So there you go. So I think it's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing because, like I said before, it's not what you presented. So now it's weird to be like, oh, and by the way, there's been tons of and she said there was infidelity in her marriage the first time, and then it comes up again, but she still decides to marry him because she said they worked it out, and it was just being a nice person, I remember when Eddie Murphy, he picked up this woman who turned out to be transgender prostitute. Look it up. It's Juicy Scoop history. It was that she needed a ride. Okay, that was back when, like, prostitutes would actually walk the street. She needed a ride. And then Eddie Murphy was like, I just gave her a ride at 4 a.m. because I was like a nice person, So there's a lot of nice guys out there, you guys. Okay. This is a crazy story. A TikToker who does quite well on TikTok. She's 19. She's a college student. She is in trouble now because she lied about having pancreatic cancer, a tumor the size of a football. She also had leukemia. She had 50, what did she have? 15 rounds of chemo, 90 rounds of radiation. So what does she to do? She starts a GoFundMe. She collects $37,000 from her TikTok followers. She's also like giving speeches at her college about it. She's an amazing girl, besides having this 11% chance to live is what she claims the doctor said. She also held a 4.0, a part-time job. But what happened is in putting this all on social media, because he got to, right? People in the medical profession kind of was like, or people that may have suffered from this type of illness or knew someone that did, said this is not the way this equipment works and this doesn't look right and these things in the background. And they alerted the authorities and said, I don't think this girl really has cancer, and she has a GoFundMe and everything. Anyway, so she was arrested. They took the IV. They took all the fake stuff that was in her house. I mean, if we could please find out if this girl watched Real Housewives of OC, the season of Brooks faking cancer and no one giving poor Vicky a casserole dish, and Megan King Edmonds, the top detective. So she is out on bail, but she is facing up to 10 years in prison for the crimes that she did, which, so it's just it's really awful. And of course it's a GoFundMe scam, but it was such an elaborate scheme and a lie. And it doesn't even seem, it wasn't like a Munchausen's. It was like an absolute fraudulent scam, which is awful. So she was caught. This is a really insane, sad story out of New York Post. It happened in Germany. There was a girl who was having issues with her family, and she wanted to fake her own death. And the way she did this was she looked for girls on the internet, like beauty bloggers, whatever, that looked a lot like her. She sought out many of them. And then she connected with this one girl, and she said, oh my gosh, would you like to meet? DM'd her, would you like to meet? I see you're a beauty blogger. I'd like to give you all these free products to try. They meet. And then this girl brings her boyfriend. They take this poor, innocent beauty blogger who thinks she's like, collaborating with another woman who's in makeup, like supporting other women. They take her into the woods. They stab her 50 times, brutalize her, to the point where she's unrecognizable, put her in the trunk of the girl's car. So once they found the car, and they make it really easy to find, once they find the car and open it up and she's gone missing, they assume that the owner of the car is this, horribly disfigured, stabbed body of a girl that is the owner's size, has her hair color, everything. So this happened back in August. They researched it all, and then of course saw that she had reached out to other people. She has been arrested. This poor girl, beautiful girl, was murdered for no reason. The other thing is, she told her family that the last word they got where she was going was to see her ex-husband. So I'm like, I think she set up her ex-husband on top of it. I mean, so you go missing and the last person you saw was your ex-husband, and then then the body that they think is yours is found in the trunk of the car that you own. I mean, who just wakes up one morning and is like, okay, let's find this girl and stab her 50 times? Horrible. Awful. Okay, this is pretty juicy. So this is very juicy, but it's going to lead to bigger arrests. Tom Girardi, as you know, is living in a former Erica Jane's husband. Disgraced attorney, disbarred attorney. He is in a facility in Orange County for Alzheimer's. He has officially been indicted over the client theft scandal with his son-in-law who used to work there and his CFO. And it's all these counts, these different counts that they, for all the money that they stole from 2010 to 2020. And, we'll see if what comes of this. I kind of feel like people are going to be like, yeah, so, but now this is actual criminal charges. Will he end up going to prison? They're challenging his Alzheimer's, saying that right before the Alzheimer's claim, he was teaching classes about litigation for other attorneys, if that's really true. But I really think it's more interesting about the CFO, Kamon, Kamon, and the son-in-law that worked all those years, and that they would tell the clients, because of COVID, we can't distribute your funds. And, because of the weather, we can't give you your money. Like, there was all these lies. So they were all in on keeping this scam going. It wasn't just Tom alone, which seems pretty obvious, but it took to this point to indict them all. So, according to The Sun, the news is that Lisa Rinna wants her own family reality show and is ready to become the new Kris Jenner. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Her daughters are models. They're gorgeous. She did have a reality show a long time ago when the kids were little, and she had her, I forgot the name of her clothing store, but she had like a clothing store in Studio City, and it was like on the TV channel network, which doesn't exist anymore. And she and Harry, and way before Housewife, she did this. So if the girls, I don't know how successful it would be. I would buy it. I would try to get a couple more other people in it, because there's only been like a couple moments where the girls had a couple funny like moments on the show with each other, but not really a lot. And like a little bit of, they're kind of depressing girls from what we've seen. So I don't know like how fun it would be, but I definitely think with all the Hollywood connections and all of their modeling and everything, if you're looking for, to try for one season, I would give it to them. So let's see what happens. This is also a crazy story about, there's been two weird things that have happened. Recently, a girl said they found this woman who was 29 who was pretending to be a high school student. Like it was like right out of the Drew Barrymore movie. Remember what was that called, where she like goes back, never been kissed or something. Anyway, this girl, she was an immigrant, but she was 29 and she just enrolled in school. But she was trying to be friends with people and everything. So they were like, we feel violated. And other people in the comments are like, God, maybe she just wanted an education. But you can't do that. You can't lie about your age and go back to school at 29. So there was a junior basketball team. Okay. So there was an 8th grade girls basketball team. And one of the main players couldn't play, and it was like coming to the finals. So instead of taking someone off the bench, one of the coaches decided to put on the outfit and put her hair back and played the game pretending to be an 8th grade player. So of course they found out, they pulled out of like the tournament, but like people were like, does that girl look 13? I thought that was hilarious. And also, of course, Beyonce has announced she is going on tour too. So, I mean, save your money between Adele, Taylor Swift, Madonna, and Beyonce. Only the wealthiest of gays are going to be able to attend these concerts. And so find one, hop on, hold on for dear life, because there's some real good shows coming your way if you can afford it. Now I'm really excited to share with you a great interview I did with a very popular Instagram account called House and Habit. It goes deep and she investigates everything. We'll get into how she got her 1.1 million followers, the kind of information she brings to you. We talk about several juicy subjects that have been happening in the past year that she was heavily involved in, and so much more. So please welcome my guest, Jessica Krause. Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I'm very excited for our next guest. You guys have been asking for this. This is Jessica Krause, best known for her 1.1 million followers on Instagram. It is called House in Habit, and it's a cool picture of you in like a great pair of jeans. You have great style. Came in with great style. And just amazing some of the stuff that you uncover, and we're going to get into some of the hottest topics that you did. But just first, tell us a little bit about, you say here you're a writer, you're a journalist. What is your career? How did you end up here at the Juicy Scoop Studios?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that this is probably the first time in my life I've been on time to anything. So,
okay, good.
I just wanted to put that out there. I want my friends to know that I am capable of it.
Okay.
As far as everything that's happened in the last 2 years, it's been pretty crazy because it wasn't something I set out to accomplish or even create. I started doing the pop culture things, I guess, almost 2 years ago, just because I was bored with everything online, and it was I feel like I was at a point that I was either going to get offline and do something completely different, because I was kind of a lifestyle blogger. So it was there was selfish intentions behind it. I was like, what do I want to do with my time online? And it was all of these pop culture stories that I grew up with. So I started with like 90s kind of throwbacks.
Which I love. I call it Juicy Scoop history.
Really? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
And like probably like same era. I love like the 90s and
right.
And it's fun because they've kind of been buried. So they're like old stories but new to some, right?
Right, exactly.
So that was my whole thing. And that was fun. And it ended up being like accidentally popular the more I would cover these stories. And then I started to be more opinionated in it because, again, I was on this mission. I thought I was going to be canceled for all these other things. And I was like,
what did you think you were going to be canceled for?
Well, it got very contentious during COVID and stuff. I was being labeled all kinds of crazy things just for... Everything was political, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
like, even though I never expressed either side, it's just you're getting pinned on...
Exactly, myself too.
Right, and so...
I smiled a couple times.
Right.
That's
like,
bad to be in a photo
you
smiling.
Can't smile, no.
Can't smile. Can't walk outside your house. Yeah.
No. And I think I was writing about going insane, being locked up with my kids for those 3 weeks. Like, everyone was like baking bread and stuff, and I was locked inside with 4 boys that I wanted to kill. And I'm like...
How old are your boys?
They're teenage. They're 16, 14, 13, and 8.
I have 2.
Like,
and 4 is...
It was a lot.
Double that.
I was like,
yeah.
So I was trying to get away from the politics and everything, and I was at this point where I had these haters that were intent on seeing me canceled.
Okay.
So I just started having fun with Instagram again, which it had kind of gone away, and then, like I said, that became popular, and I love it. Like, I could do that all day long, and then I kind of fell into the court cases just by randomly ending up at Britney Spears' hearing.
Let's talk about Harry and Meghan.
No.
What are your general thoughts about the journey of the last 4 years of Harry and Meghan and where they are today and everything? Let's get into it.
And are curse words allowed on here?
Of course. Yes, always.
Okay, well, this one is a personal... So this is a very biased story for me because, like, some of these I try to cover from an unbiased perspective. This I feel very passionate about because I grew up obsessed with the royal family. I've talked about it a lot. I knew everything about their lineage and the family, everything, Queen Mother. So, like everyone, I followed the boys growing up, and they feel like we're all family, right?
Right, like little brothers.
Yeah, they're our little brothers.
Yeah.
And we want them to be happy.
Right.
So when he first started dating her, I loved her, like everyone.
Me
She's
too.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
He seemed happy, and
Right.
it was fun watching him with this new woman.
Yeah.
And that quickly turned. I started seeing... So the press did start turning on her.
Yeah.
And they kind of blame it now on different things. But I saw in real time what was happening because she was going against every kind of traditional aspect of their, in the engagement, everything. She was going against tradition. And so I saw the press turning, and then it was just one thing after another where I'm like, this is not going to be good. Because, she kind of, at a certain point, like, if you're a woman with good intuition, you can pick up on these type of women, I think. Like, I feel like we all know somebody like Megan Markle.
I do now, but I have to say I was, like,
Did it take you a
down
while?
for the wedding.
The wedding?
And I had
yes.
one friend that was like, I don't like her. And I was like, why? What's wrong with her?
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my God, why is everyone so mean? Like, I said this a million times. Like, I love that she was from LA, that she went to an all-girl Catholic high school, that she was like this actress, that she, and I'm like, I don't
Like
understand.
a real girl.
Yeah, I don't know why people don't like her. And then I really empathize with the fact that she had this half-sister that was, telling everybody that she's a pushy
trashy,
princess
okay, yeah.
and like being so awful. And I appreciate that
Yes.
Meghan wasn't close with her and didn't want her at the wedding. And I was like, I appreciate that
family
because
drama.
I have a serial sister and I understand what that's like. And I had
Okay.
to have my sister at my wedding and she called me a cunt that day. And I was like, yeah. And I'll never get that day back, but I did it because how could you not have your sister?
It was a personal connection to the trashy.
How could you not have your sister at your wedding? You're going to be seen as the awful actress who somewhat made it,
Right.
and you don't have your sister, And so I've always been like, hey, it's your day. You should have whoever you want. And, if you're estranged from someone, don't have the pressures. Now, she has the pressures of the whole world. And so that part I sort of sympathize with. I sort of sympathize with the the mix-up with the dad and the photos that I think probably the sister and the brother convinced him to do for $100,000,
That
but
was
then
so
he
bad.
felt befumbled and embarrassed, and it's 3 days away. And so again,
it was such a mess. Oh my gosh, it was such a mess.
I kind of forgive the whole wedding thing and the latest stuff about flower girl dresses and I'm like, who hasn't had issues like that with the wedding now?
Right.
And make it 1,200 times bigger. But it was more when I started to be like, was just all the Mexit stuff and her leaving and not being able to keep the names, and then of course the Oprah interview, and then all these deals, and now of course all the lies that have been found in the book, and now I'm like, now I'm not a fan.
So it took you a long time to come to the truth, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I guess I didn't want to be like everybody else.
Okay.
You know,
I mean,
and
that's
I was
very
like,
fair. That's very nice of you. Welcome though to the truth.
Yeah.
No, I picked up right away. I thought all of the things that you liked about her, I was suspicious of. I'm like, an American actress. It's going to be a huge contrast to this life. Like, it's not going to work out so well because also she was older. She had been married.
Right.
You're jumping in. Like, she's had all this freedom, and she's a self-made woman, which is amazing. She's smart. Jumping into that.
And I did kind of, again, give her some empathy as a Southern California girl.
Right.
I was like, yeah, it's not that fun every day having to like go do some, go see, act like you're interested in talking to some person that you're not.
Right.
You're not going to get coffee and doing yoga with your girlfriends and going to Craig's for dinner and maybe having like a fun audition or a premiere. Once the wedding's done and everything, you're just like, you're with stuffy people. Even their accommodations, I was like, still, it's gloomy out. When you're like a Southern California person, it is hard. Like when we had rain for a couple weeks, my friends were seriously like getting depressed. I'm like, you guys, we are so spoiled.
No, we were.
But
it's real.
it's a weird thing if that's not what you're used to. And so
That's
I'm like,
true.
now you're kind of isolated. Whatever friends you make in England aren't really like your homegirls. So I was kind of like, so I saw that part of it.
Well, I see that part of it too, but I think if they would have been honest about that and said like, we're not happy here.
Yeah.
We want to make a life in America on our terms. Fine. Like, I feel like there would be a lot of support there.
Right.
But the way they went about it was so messy and ugly and unnecessary to like, because really the allure of them is their titles, is that he's connected to the royal family and they had this whole falling out. And so the allure there was the drama that they could expose all these secrets. But I think, so they didn't just leave. They didn't just say like, we're not happy here. We want to be famous in America, which is really the case.
Right.
Because what they have to do, their roles, they have to get up and go visit kids at hospitals and like go to military.
A factory.
It's actually
and sometimes
like every
cameras,
day.
And sometimes cameras aren't there.
And they're not there. Yeah,
and you still have to get cute.
And you have to smile and be nice to everyone all the time.
That's what I'm saying. And they're
It's
not
exhausting.
interesting.
Like,
You're not
we
always
wouldn't
with
want that.
interesting people. Yeah.
No, like I don't want that.
Yeah. I don't think she thought it through.
But I think
Or she did.
I think
or
she
do you
did.
think this was always her plan?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's juicy.
And I will get to that eventually. But I have proof there. It was
Today on my show
no,
or later on?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying there will be proof. But yeah, I think it was always a calculated there was a lot of calculated things behind it. And I think she set out to meet Harry. And I mean, what is very
There's definitely
obvious.
proof that she set out to meet Harry.
Yes, she set
knew
out to meet Harry.
Yeah.
And so to
Asked,
say you didn't know who Harry was, you lost me at that.
Asked people, that knew him to introduce me, blew off Piers Morgan to go meet him. And I think Piers Morgan thought he was going to get laid. I mean, I think it was...
She let him down.
Yeah, she's someone who is the classic social climber that is talking to you at a party and looking over to see if someone better walked in the door.
Right. And you can tell because that whole Netflix thing that came out, you can see the planning and plotting that went into that.
Yeah.
They were recording themselves. Like, nobody makes recordings of them, like, going through boxes and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think from the get-go, once they decided... I don't think she ever planned on being, like, a London resident.
Okay.
So I think she's like, I have to get this guy over to America, and we're going to be these
But do you think when she
Like-
thought we're going to go over to America, we'll still have all the perks of being the
Yes.
prince? That's what I think so too.
Because now she's a duchess.
we'll have the
and
security, and I'll get to have the best. I'll get to have it
And
all.
then come back for like the fun,
The fun events.
The fun events
Yeah.
where all the cameras are, and you get to wear these fabulous hats, and
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
She wanted the best of both worlds, and the royal
Totally.
family's like, fuck this. The queen's like, no.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, I think the way they went about it was so ugly. And the Oprah interview was disastrous. Like, as soon as she said she didn't know who Harry was, it lost me completely. Like, that was ridiculous. And then that was all just a promotion. That was like a commercial. I mean, they were all in business together. And the fact that they dragged the family like that, I don't care who your family is, that was, I think it turned a lot of people off. It turned me off.
What about that scene that everyone says where he's like, you can tell him cringing when she's doing the mocking of the curtsy
Yes.
about
that's
his
embarrassing.
now dead grandmother. Yeah.
And also, why did the editors not cut that out? I thought that was I mean, she's just.
I don't think they saw. I don't.
You don't
think.
think they-
I think the editors, man. But I know they had final say, and I don't think they saw it. I think she probably thought that's my one
She
time being
thought
funny because
she's
she's
really
not funny.
She's not funny.
She's not funny,
not
and she
funny.
thinks she's funny.
I know.
And she's trying to be funny, and she's actually not.
That's what I keep saying. I go, she thinks.
I also heard that she was sixth on the suits list, meaning that means 5 more people are more important than you every day that you film, and that she was being written out. So that dumb show wasn't even going to continue for her.
For her, really?
For her, that's what I've.
Well, that's what
heard
I think.
rumors,
She's like,
yeah.
what am I going to do? I should probably marry a prince. Like,
Yeah.
my show's going to be canceled. I just.
Oh, and I also got scoop from somebody who was her friend in high school, who knew she was like awful in high school, and like
Yeah,
and like stole people's boyfriends and acted like she was their
Yeah.
friend and did all these, but that girl was still featured on the show saying nice things about her.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that happens a
so
lot.
she stuck around and like she's like, yeah, I'll stay friends with Meghan, and Meghan
Right.
might have been extremely nice to her these last 5 years, and she got to go to the wedding and everything. So their life as two women who are 40 is not every day as a sophomores in high school.
Right.
So it's like and also but it's interesting.
I've heard a lot of bad things about her with how she treats staff and servers. And I had a very close connection to their ex-nanny call and tell me that, she is still owed overtime. They refused to pay her overtime. And that seems to be a common theme.
A nanny back in Santa Barbara?
Yeah. I want to say the most recent nanny that was let go. There's like a huge turnover with them. And I think if that's what sparked the whole fight between her and Kate is that she treated Kate's staff, allegedly treated Kate's staff bad, right? And Kate was not having it. But
it's interesting because she was a waitress with my friend Chris Frangiola at
Right.
Mirabelle. So usually
Really?
people that have been
like
waiters
I was a waitress, so
are
I'm-
like a little, I think, just naturally more sensitive. However, this is something I always found so interesting. There was a book that about White House staff, and the staff was all interviewed, and they said that the best presidents that treated them the best and asked them about their kids and everything were the Bushes.
really?
And especially
Wait.
George W. Bush Jr. And I thought, what I think that is I think sometimes when people are raised in society with staff, they
Right.
actually treat them better because from the very beginning,
almost like family.
they know how to treat it with family and everything. And just because they've lived this life of privilege, they
Yeah, that makes
actually
sense.
are, manners, etiquette, and everything. And I even noticed it one time with a rich friend of mine. We were like in an elevator going to a penthouse with a doorman, and my friend had grown up very wealthy, Northern California, home in
Right.
Napa, penthouse here, and we're just in the elevator. I'm just being quiet, and he's like, so, and he starts asking this guy all these questions and being truly interested, and I was like, oh, that's really nice. And then I thought, yeah, it's
They're
so
you're
sometimes
right.
it can be that too. And interesting that then when she got to this place, she didn't try to study or ask or wonder like what is appropriate, how much can I do,
like approach with curiosity.
Because whenever you
It's a
hear
whole
about
new-
someone who that was a head of a household or whatever, it's always like, and Joan Rivers, paid for my child's college education and knew every name of my kids and would ask about these things.
Right.
And then other
I think
people, they don't know because they're not trying to be rude. Sometimes they're being rude, but sometimes they just don't even really know what the etiquette is, and that is actually really should be encouraged.
No, I think that's a really good point. I've actually never thought about that, but I think you're right.
Yeah, and like the Clintons, and no bash to the Clintons, but they didn't get such a great report. And I'm like, well, they came from Arkansas and they weren't raised with
Right.
they weren't raised with,
Not as friendly.
Yeah, so it could have been interpreted that way too, or it took a while or whatever.
But I even talked to a woman yesterday who called me about something else. And her friend worked with Meghan on one of those tours to Africa when she went to go maybe to one of the orphanages or something. But she again was like, she only had nightmare stories about her. Like she was late and she would blame her. Like they'd have the car out front waiting for her and she would call the producer and say, she'd blame the car. Like, well, the car's not here yet.
What show was this that she was doing?
No, it was when she was doing tours in Africa.
Oh,
I think before
Before
all
next.
this.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I keep getting these stories from credible people.
Yeah.
And so, and again, this wouldn't be dragged out unless you guys made a decision to drag everything out and to air it publicly. So now there's going to be a flip side to that. Like we're going to talk about your yacht days.
So, yes, I would like to talk about the yacht days. So I've seen some photos and whatnot, and I say Google it. I think some of it is
Exaggerated.
could be innocent. Some of it could be like, yeah, my girlfriend invited me to go on a yacht. I've been on yachts of people I don't know, too.
It's not a bad thing.
Doesn't mean that I was sleeping with 3 princes on the yacht, but like...
No, but I'm saying those things are going to be investigated and looked into, and I think a lot got scrubbed when he first started dating her seriously. I saw it because I was reading things and they all of a sudden were pulled off completely. They were pulled off the internet, which is what, that does happen these days.
Yes.
So they can be kind of erase history.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any concrete claims. I'm just saying that it'll be interesting to see kind of her. I think that there's going to be a very ugly flip side to this.
What do you think of all the lies that people have caught? I just saw one.
With her? Or,
yes, I just saw one
because I know it's both sides. Like the British press is horrible. What she's saying is true. Like there is an element of truth to that.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But the lies they have told,
just
stupid lies.
I just did a show on like pathological lying and like why do people do this? So I just saw someone put a little video together, and it's her being interviewed or talking about how her wedding dress included a little piece of blue material from the blue dress that she wore on her first date with Harry.
Right, and she didn't.
And someone goes, that is so beautiful. And I'm like, that is really cute. Other brides should pick that up. That's what I'm thinking in my head. And then they go to his audio book where he's like, on our first date, Meghan wore jeans, a white T-shirt, black pumps, and a black sweater. I know nothing about fashion, but it was very chic.
Why did he remember that?
And so there was no blue dress.
There was no, well,
and so it's like,
happens all the time.
Could people have remembered something different and blah, blah, blah. But there's so many discrepancies in his book.
Yes.
That he had this other writer help him with too. And, but in the end, like, does it really matter? I mean, it sold 1 million copies. I just wonder where they go. I just wonder, like you do, where do you go from here?
Like when you have to be interesting on your own?
Yeah, because you're not interesting. You guys
you're not
aren't
funny.
You're not funny. You're not interesting.
You're pretty.
And what made it interesting is that you were this pretty girl that married a prince, and and what we wanted.
There's a mystery there, right?
What we wanted was to see the 4 of you guys.
Oh my gosh, it was
having
so
a blast,
fun.
going to a Beyonce concert together, having your kids run around together.
Yes.
That's what the world wanted
cry.
to see. That's what we wanted. That's what we wanted to see.
That's what we wanted. Yes, the
and
4 of them.
And it's like we didn't. Now it's like, and can you blame?
Well, because they were such a tight group. Like those brothers were very close, and when he was when he was single and it was, the three of them. He
Yeah.
got along really well with Kate. I think we missed that. Yeah, we wanted to see Kate and Will vacationing in Los Angeles.
What do you think of her psychologically? Because it's like, if this was a man who took his wife to another country and she no longer was talking to her sister or her dad
right.
or anybody,
Well-
and then she wrote a book about how mean they all were, and you would say, my God, this guy is emotionally abusing her. He has alienated her from her family.
Right.
This is classic, red flag 101.
All the red flags.
Yeah. And
I think
it's
the
like
friend thing is a big deal. She's pulled him. I don't want to say she, but
Yeah.
he's pulled away from a lot of his old friends, and I think that's the huge red flag in any right.
Yeah.
Like male or female.
That's
not,
what I'm saying. But I'm saying I think
Yeah,
people
I think it'd
are
be-
being as critical of it
Okay.
because he's a man
right.
versus like it's a more classic situation when a woman looks back on an abusive relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, oh my God, right from the start, he said he didn't like my sorority sisters, and then I couldn't talk to my mom, and then, and then
Right.
10 years later, I finally escaped. So it's like in a much bigger scale,
Yeah.
this is essentially that as well. And then you'd say, no, but it's because he loves her so much. I definitely think he's madly in love with her.
I do too.
I just wonder how she'll feel about him when the dust is settled and the.
Are we making predictions?
I've already made a prediction,
I
but
have a prediction too. What's yours?
well, I believe that they will get divorced within 5 years, and then her next person will be whatever the Jeff Bezos of 5 years
That's
from now
my
will be.
prediction.
Okay, good.
Okay, that's my exact prediction.
Yeah.
I was going to say 3 years, but I'll go with 5.
Okay.
But I was thinking philanthropist.
Someone who just
Someone
but
big.
super wealthy.
Super wealthy and big in that. I mean,
Yeah.
she's going to move into politics, I think. So
Good luck, though. I mean, you really think we want?
Well, there's no other choice, really, because she's not a good actress and she's not funny and they're not too interesting. So they have to go into
podcast.
politics.
Who the hell who
I
cares
can't.
about that?
I can't even hate listen.
And then I
can't.
also heard that she's not even really doing the interviews. Like someone pre-interviews it, and then they kind of, now this is all alleged, but like there was some evidence to it where someone's like, thanks for interviewing me, Annie. And then like they would do the interview and then it'd be plopped in and edited, and
Well-
almost like someone who does like hosting of a show where you go on and you do the beginning and the end of every show in one day. It's like then she comes in and then she was
That
like,
sounds right.
so my interview with Paris Hilton was quite interesting. Da 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 da. And then you
Also-
hear Paris and then like she wraps it up at the end, but there wasn't a ton of going back and
No.
forth. But I have not listened, so maybe
I
I'm
mean,
wrong.
I tried. I listened to a couple. They're mostly about her.
Yeah.
She's one of those people that like
Brings it back to her.
Yes,
Yeah,
everything
I kind of
is-
do that too. Have you noticed today? But at least I can admit it, and I know what my faults are. Yeah.
Well,
Uh-huh.
no,
Yeah.
it's bad. It's not
yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know what they'll do. I
But
don't-
that is my exact same prediction.
Yeah.
Like a younger, hotter Jeff Bezos,
Yes. And
the
then
new version.
And then I wonder what, like, I think he's supposed to have, like, obviously they're going to want him to write another book, but what's there to write about? You've told
No.
every
I don't think they can write
argument,
another book.
that your brother was like, don't act like you know me in high school.
She literally wrote about how Kate didn't want to share her chapstick with her. Or he wrote about how
Yeah.
Kate, like, we don't need to know these things. Like, she's English.
I mean,
she
she
doesn't
went-
want to hug you. She doesn't want to share her chapstick. She didn't really like you. Like, I don't know why this needs to be a chapter in the book.
But I mean, it's literally like they had to fill it. Like, you have to
Yeah,
go back.
you're right.
I mean,
With all these.
and then you're like, wait, can I tell the story
But
again?
let's hope
and
it's
expand
over.
upon
Let's
it?
hope this is the end of it, because I can't even. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I mean, is there really going to be another Netflix show about them, like, rescuing, like, chickens?
But I guess if they're selling, I mean, yeah, Montecito Harry.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite.
Do you think she would ever join, like, a housewife situation?
I think it's going to be interesting to see after this phase, after the dust has settled, after the hype from all of these scandalous secrets, like, who are they? What do they have to offer? Because you came here now, you said you wanted privacy, but you came here wanting fame. So what do you have to offer?
Right. Well, it's juicy.
We
I've had a
will
lot
see.
of fun with
It's fun.
with my sons, because I've been saying that I have one heir and one spare. And I mean, the little fights that he's reflecting on are
Oh my
so
gosh.
innocent.
They're so
Anybody
innocent. It's
that
like
has boys.
I know.
and
It happens
boys-
every day.
I mean, when I first met my husband, he's one of two. He has a brother, an older brother than him, and then a younger sister. And my mother-in-law used to tell me stories about the two of them, and I'm like, oh my God, I do not want two boys, like, you know. And then I got two boys, and it's a lot of that teasing and that kind of thing
all day long.
And then one day the younger brother, you know, and so, you know, then they had a big fight in their 20s or whatever. But they're like
Can you
great.
imagine putting
But
that
they're
in a
great.
book?
But they're great. Well, I just said it on my podcast. But they're great friends today. Like they
Right,
thoroughly
that's the
enjoy each
thing.
other.
That's
But there's
literally
still like
brothers.
a little bit of a tit for tat. And there's the same thing with sisters. There's like, you know, but you get over it, and
But
it's a very common
it's just
relationship.
part of
yeah.
siblings. And
Yeah.
I think that him trying to expose William really exposed his jealousy, which is not a good look.
Right.
So-
and I mean, he was a mess. They protected him.
Yeah.
Talks about the press.
We remember Wild Harry. Like, we remember the partying naked days and doing cocaine in Vegas.
Right.
Some of us remember those.
Yeah,
You
so
were a
it's-
mess.
Yeah.
We all forgave you. It wasn't William's fault. Like, it's just, the jealousy really came through, I thought, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's withholding a lot of resentment and jealousy. So,
And when all his hair is gone,
I mean, he did not need to go there. He did not need to remind
Calling
the
the
world that his
kettle
brother's bald.
black, yeah, or whatever you call it.
We see what's happening in the back too, Harry.
Oh yeah,
We see what's coming.
yeah. This was the biggest story of the year. Was Amber and Heard? Oh look, it's by the Scoop from People.
Oh,
They call it the Scoop. Whatever. Amber Heard settles Johnny Depp lawsuit. Now, how did you? And you went to the trial. You were there. Like, how did that all come about? And that he found you and welcomed you in, and you guys are like friends. How did that happen?
Well, I was going to cover it regardless because I was sort of familiar with the story, and I remember being disappointed. Like, I was never a huge Johnny Depp fan. I was accused of that, and I was like, I was never that into Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Love his movies like everyone else. But I remember when the news came out about him being a wife beater and all this, I was disappointed because he was always kind of a cool guy in Hollywood. And I remember being disappointed. And then I remember when her tapes, the audio came out, and I remember sitting in a parking lot listening, and I was shocked because you can hear it on that he's trying to leave the situation, and she's, you know, kind of berating him and all these things. So then I was interested in it again because I'm like, okay, well, we've been led to believe that he's this, you know, abusive monster.
Right, and also he played like a drunken pirate. So, you know, and like, so
It
it's
is-
like the persona,
Right.
you know, and we're also taught to always believe. There was
Right.
literally a campaign in the last 3 years that was like, believe all women.
Which-
all the time, which is a weird thing too. To say.
I honestly,
yeah.
well, that's the whole point. That is why I covered it, because of
Yeah.
that saying. I thought that was the stupidest slogan ever, especially with 4 boys.
I was going to say,
As a mother, right?
I do think there's something interesting as a boy mom living in this climate, because our whole lives, you know, you're thinking about yourself, a woman's rights, and, you know, like, you know, believe all women, and then second,
Right.
oh my God, it's hard to glass ceiling and everything. And now in 2023, we're raising young men, and especially if they're straight and of a lighter skin tone.
Well, you
Like,
say it.
Yeah, it's not popular.
it's not
popular, and
super popular
you
right now.
immediately are the enemy, and they're told that and everything.
Right.
And so it's like, well, geez, you know. And I even remember one time during all the stuff that was going on, you know, every day there was a new person that was from Matt Lauer to Harvey Weinstein. I'm like, gosh, do I change my Twitter thing to, you know, raising 2 non-rapists? Like, I mean, I'm just trying to do
wouldn't
my
hurt.
work job, you know.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah, like, and so it just kind of, so yeah, I mean, it is
yeah.
like an interesting place to be with it.
Well, everything you're saying was part of the reason I picked it up so hard, because as a mother, I didn't like where that was going, and it just feels like that could be very dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, believe all women, and so I was like, this is interesting, and I think there was a lot of interesting angles inside that trial, and that was one of them. So I announced that I was going to be covering it, and I spent like a full week going over what court documents I could get. And that's when I got a call randomly from a friend of Johnny's who had reached out a few days earlier. And at that point, nobody knew.
Because that person had found your Instagram and was
No, it's
following
always
you?
a wife. The women always, a wife is always, anytime a man contacts me, it's like my wife or girlfriend. She loves you.
Right.
It's always that. So, yes, a wife suggested, because they didn't know at that point what the media was going to do. They didn't know how it was going to go because he had been slammed by, for how many years. And she goes, I think that she is willing to hear Johnny's side. And so I had talked to the friend a couple times, and then I think jury selection started, and I got a call, and I talked to him for a few minutes, and then he said, there's somebody here who wants to say something to you. And as soon as he got on the line, you can hear Johnny's voice.
Yeah.
So I'm like at soccer practice, and my kid's like screaming about he wants like a hamburger or something, and there's like it was like ridiculous. And I was driving a car without air conditioning, so I had the window down, so there was like all this air and like a complaining child and like Johnny Depp on the phone talking about like Hunter S. Thompson. And I was just I'm like trying to take it all in, and I was just like,
who's Hunter S. Thompson? Is he a writer, right?
He's a writer, and and I love Hunter S. Thompson, and so that was the thing. We were on the phone talking about writers.
Oh,
randomly.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how it got there, but
yeah,
like I said, there was a lot of airflow.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just one of those moments where I'm like, this is so crazy. But this kind of like details I love, right? Like
Yeah.
You're on a soccer field, you get a call, you don't ever expect it's going to be Johnny Depp. But basically he was just very appreciative that I was going to be open to covering it with an open mind. And so that's all it was. It was just a thank you. And we talked about all sorts of other things, just like the writers and all that kind of stuff.
And then how did you end up going there?
Well, so I started covering it, it got
Because
crazy
you live in Southern
attention.
California. You live like an hour from me, right? Too?
Yes.
Sorry.
No,
How bad was it?
It was 2 hours.
Okay, sorry.
It was
Yeah.
2 hours.
Uh-huh.
Well, by this point, I had already flown to a couple different places, so it was worth it to me to be there.
Yeah.
And this was, the trial everybody was talking about.
And are you married?
I am.
And so, did your husband have any qualms about you? Like, hi, Johnny just called me.
Well, he was like,
John and I are going to hang out in Virginia, or whatever it was.
Well, it was so funny because he was the one who told me. He's like, at the beginning, he's like, I don't think anyone's going to be into this case. Like, nobody cares about, these. He was terrible advice, but like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But luckily we don't listen to them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought I need to go there and show again the fans, because there was like llamas out front. There's people dressed up as pirates.
Why did they bring llamas? Never understood
Because
that part.
oh gosh, now you're testing my knowledge, but I think it had something to do with him saying he wouldn't come back to Disney for like 100 million llamas or something,
okay.
right?
All right, got it.
I don't know, but there was llamas and pirates, and it was a whole scene. And so I went initially, and it was pretty quiet. But I realized, like, I don't really need to be here because I'm staring at the back of Johnny's head, and Amber's, like, kind of giving me dirty looks. And you have better angles at home on TV, and I can't, post anything. So I'm trapped in there for 8 hours staring at the back of their heads. But so I covered most of it from home, and I went back for the end of it, for the verdict, or I guess closing statements. But
And then did you go to Europe with him or something and see him play?
No, that was what was weird is everybody was already going to England. I was going for the Jubilee, Queen's Jubilee.
Okay.
His whole team was going for, I guess, the Jeff Beck concert.
Okay.
So just randomly, we were all headed to England, and then we were given tickets, really nice seats to that show. Which now, with Jeff Beck dying, was a really cool experience.
That it's awesome.
Yeah, it was. Great.
I was totally obsessed with it, and I was somewhat criticized sometimes how I would report it because I wasn't dedicating 8 hours of my day to it, so I was missing some stuff. But I was coming more from a place of just the law of defamation. Not in fact, do I think she lied or not? More that. Can he really, can he really get this money? And did she really break the laws of freedom of speech? by doing this open end. So that was sort of my angle, and then people interpreted that I was someone on Amber's side or whatever, and I wasn't. I mean, I was just like, I find this really interesting and like and kind of scary because for what I do and everything, like,
right.
I mean, when can you tell a story? Like, and I think it's happening more and more with girls, even like talking about a horrible boyfriend they had or a horrible date, and they go on their podcast or they even go in a Facebook group of like, stay away from this asshole. And then that asshole tries to like sue them. You've ruined my life, And it's like, well, when can I tell my story? If it was my story to tell, like, what's the protection? And then, so it's more about that's what I kind of was like thinking. And, but I'm not surprised how it's all come about post that they sort of settled on the money and he's moving on and he's having great opportunities. And I really predict she will have other opportunities too. I really don't think she's going to be completely done. I think she'll get like some type of dramatic series on a streamer in the next 2 or 3 years is my prediction.
Well, I think the same thing. I think people are very forgiving, like, and I think I've always said that too. I think you're right. I think there's an opportunity there, but and I do like the legal, like what you're saying. I like that as a counter argument. Yeah. Like I said, there was a lot. It kind of turned into a whole joke because of TikTok and everything, and I was trying to be a middle ground there, where like I wasn't obviously the New York Times, but I wasn't like these ridiculous people on TikTok. Like it got very silly, Right. And I hated all the the poop jokes. I hate all that. So I was kind of in the middle, but I mean, I did.
Because my show is a comedy, so it's like I did have to like.
I hate that.
I did have to kind of like, what is the truth? Was it a dog poo? Was her poo? Was there no poo at all? Like all the little crazy details, and then also there were funny parts of like, gosh, this is what happens when you marry a really young girl who then brings her 12 friends to live in your apartments for free. And you're this overly generous guy. And it's from MC Hammer to him. Like, stars need to know, like, once they start making money and stuff, you got to protect yourself and who you bring in your life. And then also the freeloading friends. And the freeloading friends don't want the freeloading to stop. So they're going to be extra loyal to you, Amber, and you're going to have no say, or they're going to tell Amber, put up with this toxic relationship because we want to go on the trip next week to Coachella.
Yeah, and we want to keep our lofts.
Yeah, so it's like they both by including all these other random people, their relationship was already off to an awful start, I think,
Well, that is a good point. My youngest son, he was, because they're always kind of aware of what I'm covering, and that was on all hours of the day. And he was like, 6 or 7, and he's like, he married her. Like, he made a bad decision. He chose her, and I was like, okay, you're right. But like, he was just like, I mean, why did he marry? Like, if she's so terrible, like, So we were debating in the house about it, but also you have to consider that I was getting a crazy amount of gossip, an influx of gossip coming in through DMs from people who knew both of them. And so my whole coverage was based on what I was hearing from both of them, which mostly aligned. Yeah. So like they were ex-friends of hers wanting, because people, it's Hollywood. And, and now you have this source that's not going to give your name away. Right. But I'm going to give your details away. And so everybody wants to be a part of the story. Got it. And so all of these, celebrities are watching and giving their little scoop on it. And so that was, to me, that was like where I felt confident with the angle that I chose, because her old friends were saying what his friends were saying. And you know what I mean? Like, because I always say that I believe in the power of gossip, because it is the word of the people without any sort of filter. And if all of the angles from various sides match up, it kind of gives you a good sense of what might be true,
and I do remember that you would share a lot of that.
And that was fun. I think that was fun.
Of like, a former stylist or someone, or how she would, use the connections and make sure that the paparazzi saw her here and there, and to create this story of, her career and whatnot. Do you think that the father of her child is Elon Musk?
1,000%, yes.
And why is that being kept a secret, do you think, from her? Do you think that's a
I don't think it's a
between the
secret
two of them?
anymore.
Okay.
That was a fun one to break because I feel like nobody really knew, at least when I shared it, that was a shocking revelation because, and again, it was one of those things I knew without research, before I'd researched, because I kind of put together that he was having all these surrogate children. And then she had just had the baby out of nowhere, kind of this baby popped up. And I was like, this is too weird. Has to be Elon Musk's sperm manifestation.
How much do you think she gets from him?
I mean, I can't even.
Because it's not like she lives that much of a high life.
I don't even know where she's at.
That place in Joshua Tree was nothing to be envious of.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, but I do know that, it's on record that she had all these frozen embryos with him, and then it came out in trial. So the fun part of that story was revealing some of those big details before they came into the bigger picture, where everyone could see them. But
so how often do you talk to Johnny now?
no, I don't talk to him. We didn't become friends out of this. It was just a cool connection. But I did become friends with a lot of the people involved in that trial on that side.
Yeah.
So it was a good experience.
Did you talk to the beautiful lawyer? What's her name?
Joelle?
No, the brunette. Camille,
yeah.
Yeah.
Camille lives in Orange County, too.
Yeah.
Dr. Curry?
That was great. Her story was great. That she handled herself so well.
Amazing.
And then she, it's got such a illustrious career from it.
Right.
And that she didn't quit to, being a lawyer to then go on to sell flat tummy tea and join the Real Housewives of OC. She's still using her talents to be a good lawyer.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for that. Because sometimes when people get a little taste of TV, they're like, wow, I don't want to read this brief anymore. I'd rather sell candles.
She's so pretty. She's TV made.
Right.
No, and you know what I haven't talked about is I met her boyfriend briefly, and he was the sweetest guy, sweet English guy. Because there was all those rumors that she was with Johnny, right?
Oh, I kind of started that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought there was moments of, him holding the door and this and their connection. But then I saw him do it with other people, and I realized that's just sort of his MO. He's just, some guys are very gentlemanly.
Right.
And they are that way with everybody, and that's just their natural thing.
I think that's definitely who
but
he
then
is.
But then he started to date some other lawyer from a different case or something. Is he still with that girl, do you know?
I don't know that for sure, but
I say he sticks with lawyers.
I like it.
I don't
that
think
for
we need
him.
to be with any actresses anymore.
Yeah, I was like, I like this for him, a lawyer. It's a good look.
Yeah. Again, tell everybody where they can follow you and your highlight reels and everything on your Instagram.
House and Habit on Instagram. I have the bigger stories saved in highlights, and then a Substack. Same title, House and Habit.
What's a Substack?
Substack is the newsletter. So it's a longer form, all the extra juicy gossip, and just a full-length version of what I share on Instagram.
And do they subscribe, or they can just click on it?
They subscribe. It's free or paid, and obviously paid is going to have some perks.
I love it. I love it. Good for you.
Late night reading.
Thank you so much for coming. I really
appreciate
appreciate
Thank you for having
talking
me.
to you.
It was fun.
Thanks.